PHRM is pleased to offer today's webinar in conjunction with Governor Cox's Work-Life Balance Initiative in response to the Governor's Employee Survey. Just a few housekeeping items before we begin. This webinar will be recorded and posted on the Gateway. If you have questions, please submit them using the Q&A function and include your email address. We are hoping to be able to answer questions at the end of this webinar, but if not, we want to be sure you get answered via email afterwards. We are having a prize drawing at the end of this webinar, so to be eligible for the prize drawing, please enter in your name, email address, or phone number, wherever you would like to be contacted. This will need to be entered into the chat by 12:10 to be eligible for the drawing. There will be 2 winners announced at the end of the webinar. We are more than thrilled to have Amy Winder Newton join us today. Amy serves as a senior advisor to Governor Cox and director of the Office of Families. She has championed social media legislation and education, home visiting programs for vulnerable families, and many other upstream policies to strengthen families in Utah so children have better outcomes. Her previous roles include planning commissioner, city communications director, executive for a biotech company, small business owner, and board member for several organizations, including Prevent Child Abuse Utah. She was a 2020 candidate for Utah governor. Amy also serves part-time on the Salt Lake City Council and chairs the Salt Lake County Intergenerational Poverty Task Force. Amy is a graduate of the University of Utah. She and her husband, Matt, have been married for 30 years and have raised 4 children. They love to travel together and go on walks with their golden doodle puppy. Amy, we are so excited to have you. The time is now yours.
Well, thank you. I'm so happy to be with all of you today and to talk about what I think is such an important topic, and that is social media and how it impacts us. So today I'm going to be running through 3. First, we're going to talk about data related to social media. The second is I'm going to give an overview of our social harms campaign that the state has been running. And then we'll end with some media tips and then questions, and hopefully we can have some good conversation there. So I'm going to share my slides really quick and we'll get started. All right. So first of all, a lot of this information that I'm going to be sharing today is specifically targeted to youth. And that's because that has been Governor Cox's focus on the social media efforts, is how do we help the mental health issues that we're seeing among Utah youth. We know there's a correlation to social media. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit on the data that's out there that shows that. Now, while a lot of this is related to youth and it is impacting youth at a far more concerning rate, a lot of the things are related to adults too. So whether you have kids or not, I feel like this is an important message to talk about why we need to be looking at how to limit social media and using our devices altogether. First of all, this is a quote from our U.S. Surgeon General. So the governor started talking about his concerns with social media about 2 years ago. And he has done everything from having social media symposiums and giving speeches at a local junior high school to talk about the data and the evidence that he's seeing and the things he's worried about. Several months after he began talking about it, our U.S. Surgeon General came out and said that he is concerned about social media for the youth in the United States and very similar data. And so this is one of his quotes about calling this a national youth mental health crisis. Here's a slide that shows how depression has doubled for U.S. teens. So if you can see on this slide, 2009 to 2010 is roughly when social media started to become popular. And you can see how it has progressed and affected mental health since social media became a thing. Now, one of the ages that is impacted the most is girls around the time they go through puberty. That's when they're particularly susceptible to the negative impacts of social media. But of course, it impacts boys as well. This is the ER visits for self-harm. You can see this is like a hockey stick, and the year 2009 when rates just really took off, and we're very, very concerned about this. This is for kids ages 10 to 19, and we look at this kind of data to see the relevance to social media and what's happening online. Here's some of our national data. So up to 95% of our youth ages 13 to 17 reporting using a social media platform. So most saying, a third saying they use it almost constantly, which that's probably not a big surprise to most of us. The one that's concerning here for me is to hear that almost 60% of teen girls say they've been contacted on a social media platform by strangers in ways that made them feel uncomfortable. To me, it's scary that we're giving strangers access to our kids through social media. And then though social media was originally invented and sold as something that's going to help connect the world, interesting that since the invention, youth worldwide are feeling lonelier than ever before. Here's some more data. Body image is a big issue for our youth as they're impacted by social media. The CDC shows 57% of teen girls are persistently sad or hopeless. So let's talk about our Utah data. There's a strong relationship between screen time and lack of sleep, thoughts of suicide, and substance abuse. Only 38.4% of youth in Utah got 8 or more hours of sleep on an average school night. This is concerning to me on so many levels. Not only is it impacting academic performance, but we know there's such a direct correlation between mental health and getting good sleep. When you're not sleeping well, your mental health is going to suffer. And so this is concerning on several fronts. This last data point shows how much youth are spending time on their electronic devices, far more than they used to. So one of the sad statistics here in Utah, and we're so grateful for the Utah Sharp survey that we are able to use to get this data, but almost 18% of our youth in Utah have seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year. So we're concerned about that number. We also are concerned about the high number of children who are feeling lonely and isolated often. The CDC, as we talked before, shows 57% of teen girls are persistently sad or hopeless. In Utah, that number is 53% of female high school age students. And that's a 61% increase from 2009. And again, that's when social media started to become prevalent, was in 2009. So we did a survey before we started doing our social harms campaign. We did a survey of parents in Utah, and 57%, or Utah parents report 57% of children are using social media 7 days a week. They also report 76% of their children use it in some capacity, and 53% use it 1 to 3 hours a day. Now, my gut is this is probably a lot higher, because I don't know if as parents we really truly understand how much kids are on social media, but this is just some of the data that we received from our Utah parents. This was really interesting. That 88% of Utah parents believe social media has a detrimental impact on the mental health and well-being of children. So we were wanting to kind of see where parents were before we started this campaign, and then we'll be measuring after it's over to see what has changed. These are some of the harms of social media that we are very concerned about, and I'll let you take a minute to look through those. So many things that become a problem, especially for children. So I talked about the body image, we've talked about depression, anxiety is an issue, loneliness, we've mentioned, cyberbullying is a huge problem. Frauds and scams, time mismanagement. There's so many better things our kids could be doing than scrolling on their phones. So the campaign that we started, these were the 3 things that we targeted in the campaign that we wanted to do. We want to protect the health and well-being of Utah youth. We want to increase education as to the harmful aspects of social media among youth, and then empower Utahns to disconnect to reconnect. I think that's good for everyone, adults and children alike. So I want to show you our campaign video. I'm going to show you 2, one with a girl and one with a boy, and just show you some of the ads that we've been running on this.
Social media shows people living their best lives, but it also hides potential harms for our children.
You're so fat, it's disgusting.
Get some self-respect.
No surprise she has no friends.
You're pathetic.
And though they may put on a brave face, it might be masking unbearable pain. Social media shows people living their best lives. But it also hides potential harms for our children.
Epic fail. No wonder you have no friends.
Oh my gosh, I know where he lives.
He's got a punchable face.
This is so cringe.
And though they may put on a brave face, it might be masking unbearable pain.
When we did these, we wanted to show that a lot of times kids, we don't really know what's going on in their heads when they're scrolling and getting negative feedback and dealing with all of these things. And so we really wanted to show that they may look like they're fine and they may be really hurting inside. And we need parents and grandparents and neighbors and friends to recognize this and to try to help. And then we wanted at the end to make sure we showed that with the parent putting their arm around their child, because we do need parents to be very, very engaged on this issue. So in addition to those TV ads, we also have billboards. You've probably seen them around. These are different billboards. We use our Surgeon General's warning on some of them, just because we want parents to understand what those harms are and that it is harmful for children. We also have them in Spanish. And we also have been doing display ads to try to help people understand the dangers. And these are also in Spanish. And then we've been showing real questions, real answers. We've had our DHHS medical director, Dr. Hoffman, on some of these, but I'll show you the one with the governor here.
Well, look, sadly, we've learned that social media is causing immense harm to our young people. Over the past 10 years, as social media began to proliferate, we have seen a huge increase in anxiety, depression, and self-harm amongst our young people. And so we know it's more dangerous than we ever assumed before, and we need families and parents to understand this and start to be more careful about our social media use.
One of the things that's really awesome about our governor is he truly has led the way on this issue. We've had everyone from the President of the United States talk to him about the good work we're doing in Utah with the legislation and trying to hold social media companies accountable, but also educating parents on this issue. And then we've had members of Congress, we've had other states reach out because they want to see what we're doing in Utah. And it's really great leadership by our governor. We're using all these different mediums to help get the word out on this. And then we have a website, socialharms.utah.gov. And I would encourage you to just jot this down so that after this presentation, you have a chance to go back. It's got some great resources. It's got even more stats than what I've presented here today. And there's some that you can download the TV ads. There's great resources that you can continue to use. But I want to tell you about one of the resources that we have. You can see it here in Spanish too. And that is, if you scroll down under educational resources, this little video shows you, you can find a downloadable PowerPoint for parents and leaders. And this is something you can download, and it's a plug and play where you can have conversations with neighbors, with parent groups, with church or school groups. And you can use this, and there's even notes in this PowerPoint. Like, it is totally ready to go for you. And so we would encourage you to download this and utilize it. If you want to have discussions with your kids or anyone else, it's a really great resource. This is a little bit from the presentation. It goes through, even on the presentation, the purpose, how to best use it, and where you can get help. And then it does show a lot of the slides that I've shown you today with the data and everything else. So here's some tips that I want to talk about. And again, these go along with both for children, but also I think for adults. This is just really good advice. So I'm going to let you look over this for a minute, and then I'm going to end my slideshow so that we can talk a little bit more about these. I'm just going to run through these 5 tips really quick, and then I'd love to take any questions that people may have. So the first one was create a family media plan. Talk with those in your household about what media will be used, when it will be used, and how it will be used. And that's a really great start. The second is to create tech-free zones and encourage your kids to foster in-person friendships. This goes for adults too. And even our Department of Health and Human Services team has some really good information on connectedness. So things like prioritizing. It's important to spend quality time with people in your life who matter most. So scheduling times with those that you know and love and want to be with as much as possible is really important, and it will help you with your own mental health if you have that in-person human connection. Participating in groups, get involved in the community, join a service club or a church organization, volunteer for an organization, participate in family or neighborhood traditions, become engaged in your child's school or your community. Those are so good for us to be able to, again, have that human connection. And then asking for help is healthy. Don't be afraid to do so when your mental health is struggling. Maybe just calling a friend sometimes is exactly what you may need one day, or getting professional help if you need help there too. So disconnecting to reconnecting is so important for our mental health. The third tip was to model responsible social media behavior. So I know we need to do this for our kids, but we can all do better. I know I'm speaking for myself, but there's nothing worse than wanting to talk to someone and having them scrolling social media while you're trying to have a conversation. I just think of these poor kids who are trying to compete with their parents for their parents' attention and trying to compete with Instagram. And the message that sends our kids is not good. The message we send each other when we do it as adults isn't good either. So modeling that responsible social media behavior is really important. If you're a parent and you have kids and you want them to be off social media, one of the ways that you can do this is work with other parents, like your kids' friends' parents, and try to figure out how you can find common ground on what you're going to all allow your kids to use. So if you all decide together, we're not going to have our kids use social media, we're going to have them text each other when they want to get a hold of each other. It's so much easier when a child's friend group is all doing that together. Now, I will tell you, I have had friends who have tried this and they've done it and it's worked great, and other people who the parents one by one have caved. And so as a parent, you have to decide you're going to be strong and brave, and you're going to protect your child. And so that's a really important thing. And then even like there's really cool people like our governor who don't let their child, he's got a 17-year-old daughter and he doesn't allow her to be on social media. And I was asking his daughter about this one time. I saw her at an event and I just said, so how is it? And she said, the first few years were really hard. And she said, but I'm now in high school. She goes, I'm just known as the girl who doesn't have social media. And I kind of chuckled because I thought that's cute. She's known as that and not the governor's daughter, but she probably is known as that too. So anyway, it's one of those things where your kids will thank you someday. I have a neighbor who didn't allow her daughter to use social media. She would let her use it on her iPad, on the mom's iPad, for like a certain amount of time. And that was a great way for them to wean her off. But she's told me, she's 20 now, and she said, I am so grateful my parents didn't let me have social media because I saw what it did to my friends. And so I promise your kids will thank you later. And just at the end, I'll just say the governor has just really said, please reconsider allowing your children to use social media. It's addictive for both adults and children. It takes you away from doing really important things in life. It leads to comparison, harms self-esteem. It's really just negative and toxic. So anyway, those are just some things that I wanted to share with you today. And now I am happy to open it up for questions.
You are awesome, Amy. Thank you so much. So just a few questions that have come in. I've had several people ask about slides and if they'll be available to them for their use or that kind of thing. And yes, everything will be posted on the Gateway. So slides and a recorded version of this presentation will be on there. So, and then one of the questions we had was, is there any data on teen boys? You shared some in regards to young girls, but what about teen boys?
Yeah, so if you go on that socialharms.utah.gov website, there is all kinds of data for boys and girls. A lot of times we see the issues that boys have is that related to gaming is an issue, addiction to gaming, but there is a huge social media addiction there as well. And the data still shows it's not good for boys either. A lot of times boys end up, a lot of the social media companies and influencers will target boys for like pornography, especially. It gets targeted to both genders, but they're particularly susceptible. So there's a lot of harms there as well. But yeah, just go to our website and you'll be able to find all the data for both boys and girls.
Thanks, Amy. One more, and I like this question. They said, would you think that social media sets a standard and is the root cause of people feeling more comfortable in teasing, bullying, being rude? People do this in an anonymous persona and they don't feel guilt, or they see others portraying those traits and think it's normal.
Absolutely. I mean, I think social media has really harmed our ability to have good, constructive dialogue. People take shots at each other. I mean, it used to be, so as somebody who's in public office, I can attest to this personally. I mean, it used to just be the politicians that would get all the negative, harmful material. And now it's people just feel free to do it to each other. And I think it's really impacted how we have discourse and dialogue.
Awesome, thanks. Just a few comments. Somebody shared that they're one of those parents that doesn't allow their kids to have social media, and their daughter's 21 and still chooses not to engage in it. So a lot of people agreeing with it. I'm trying to find a few more. Forgive me, sorry. A lot of
No, you're fine. While you're looking, I'm going to just share a few other things. If your kids are on social media and you want to wean them off, you're ready to wean them off, a few things that you can do. One is have them check their phones in at night, preferably in a parent's bedroom. So we did this with our kids when they were teenagers, and we would have them, like, they would just have their normal place that it would be plugged in every night. So when I would go to bed, I could see that they were there. And I did have one kid who thought he would be really tricky, and he took his phone out of the case and tried to put the plug like into the case, and then took his phone down to his room, and we were smart enough that we caught him, and that didn't fly. But that's a really good thing to do. Also, just having a hard and fast rule that there's no phones in bedrooms or bathrooms at your home. I liked the idea too that my neighbor gave me of letting her daughter, if you're trying to wean them off, getting it off of their device, but maybe having, if they say have an Instagram account, letting them have it on your parent's device, and let them, post their dance pictures or whatever for 30 minutes a day or something like that. That's a great way to kind of start weaning them off and getting them out of that addictive continual scroll thing. But ultimately, the ideal is to not have them on at all when they're teenagers. And then just know that there's other types of smartphones that you can get. There's the Gab phones. Bart has one, I think. Lots of people are going to flip phones now. So kids can still text and get a hold of people, but then they don't have the internet access and the social media there that can become a temptation. And then just doing things like spending time together as a family and getting in the habit of having electronic free time is really important too.
Awesome. Just a couple more comments and then we'll wrap up. So somebody made the comment, it's not just social media, Snapchat, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, etc., but also YouTube and TikTok as passive non-feedback hobby that is causing shorter attention spans like digital crack, he said. So kind of that same thing. It's
exactly.
Okay. So do you have tips or ideas of how social media can be used safely and constructively, or are we just saying that those things are mutually exclusive?
So I will tell you our stance, both the governor and myself, we don't believe there is a safe way to allow your child to use social media, period. We don't believe there's a way you can make it safe. In fact, I participate on a Facebook tech parents group or whatever to kind of see what people are saying. And I'm telling you, you can't, no matter how much you lock down a child's phone, you will never be able to overcome the addictive algorithms that are in place and the harmful content that a child's exposed to, because you just can't control every piece of that. And so it really is best if kids aren't on social media when they're children, that they can wait till they're adults. And I think even as adults, we have to think twice on whether it's really good for us or not. So no, we don't believe there's a safe age for children. We think that they should be off social media, period.
Awesome. Well, I think that wraps up our questions. Amy, do you have anything you want to add at the end, or?
No, I would just say go to the website, socialharms.utah.gov, for all of this information. The slides I used today, we can also, I think you have a PDF of the slides too, Brittany, that you can give to people, but feel free to use those resources. Download your own PowerPoint presentation and help us spread the word. And please take a look at those videos. I'm heartbroken that the sound didn't work, honestly. That makes me so sad because they are really, really impactful.
You are awesome, Amy. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your knowledge and what you know about this. In closing, we just want to remind employees of a few items. Our next webinar in this series will be on April 9th, and we'll focus on family wellness. We will have a special guest, the food nanny, Lizzie Heaps, and she'll be baking bread with her family. You can visit thefoodnanny.com to find out more about her. As we've mentioned in this webinar as well, we've also created a gateway page dedicated to this initiative, and we'll keep that updated with all upcoming communications and events regarding the employee work-life balance initiative. And now the time that everyone's been waiting for, the prize drawing winners. And I apologize, I'm sure I'm going to say this last name incorrectly, but the first winner is Liz Equia. Last name is Equuihua. And so I believe we have your contact information. We will email you and reach out to you about your prize. And then the second winner is Sarah Moore. But just wanted to say thank you for attending and have a great afternoon.